For this panel, in the moment from the gentleman in this way. Yes, please, you have a floor. Yes, please.
Добрый день. Я хочу обратиться.
Oh, hello. I wanted to ask a question to Mr. Kasyanov. I'm an independent human rights defender from Ingushetia, from the Ingushetia.Republic. How do you assess the Russian leadership's actions in the North Caucasus? That's my first question. And how would you qualify the kidnaps by Russian authorities of ordinary people, particularly in the Republic of Ingushetia?
Question, absolutely. I didn't answer also this aspect of your question just with respect to Caucasus. Right. You can look at the situation there and see that Mr. Putin and with his team, with his allies, decided to transfer responsibility for Northern Caucasus to other groups, and for that reason of settling problems of Chechnya, he chosen Mr. Kadyrov, and Mr. Kadyrov representing one group of I would say minorities there, just right now having full control over situation in Chechnya, and even wider than that. I think that is the power which he got now much wider than in the beginning of separatist movement Zakhar Dudayev dreamed about. As Lilia Shevtsova just mentioned, just to a certain extent Russia already lost Northern Caucasus, but I don't believe that's already a case. We have all opportunities to improve and restore the situation in a normal manner there. My political judgment is that we need a round table with all social groups of all people living in the Northern Caucasus, and to have consensus how they would like to govern those republics in Northern Caucasus. And of course, with the strong federal presence there, and again, rule of law. Rule of law should be imposed there in a normal democratic manner, not just dictatorship of law and law just which are contrary to constitutions, but a real rule of law under control of people living there. Round table, then it could be transformed in the parliament. It could be just even special body of all Northern Caucasus, because just all problems just they're similar on one republic to another, or some of them similar, some of them completely different. But all spectrum of those problems should be dealt by specialists and scientists who know just all roots, and you as representing also one nationality of Northern Caucasus know that there are many features, and there are a lot of scientists in Russia who know in details all those aspects. And we politicians should listen to you and should follow your recommendations, and so that to pursue the policy in favor of all people living there, for all people living in Russia. Northern Caucasus is an integral part of Russia. People living there, just the integral part of Russian society, of Russian nation. And that's why I don't think just we should be too much pessimistic in the moment. We still have an opportunity to save the situation as a whole situation in Russia. Northern Caucasus is, of course, much more sensitive, but I think it is possible to settle problems of people there.
Well, thank you very much. You would like to put additional question? Okay, I can give you a floor for the additional question, please.
Mr. Kasyanov, could you please answer this question? You remember the teracte in Домодедово. And you remember that there was some reference to Ingushetia, to somebody who came from Ingushetia. And you maybe remember that Putin, when it happened, said that it didn't come from Chechnya. Then he said that somebody from Russia. Then he said that there is some footprint from Arab country. Then they started talking about Ingushetia, and today 2 people were arrested in Ingushetia, and it was 14-year-old boy and 15-year-old girl. So how do you see this situation when people who represent the power are conducting these very criminal activities in our country?
Suicide terrorism exists and produces to great extent by Russian authorities, by harsh operations in Northern Caucasus, just violating laws, and people who losing their families and other members who are alive just stepping in such a capacity. But of course, thorough investigation should take place. I don't know these cases you have just mentioned. You're human rights activists. You know this much better than all of us. But of course, everything should be in accordance with the law, in accordance with the protection of rights of every person. Nobody is guilty until there is a real judgment of independent court. Unfortunately, in Russia, we don't have that. That's why we cannot rely on authorities on that. That's why international human rights organizations are very crucial. Their assistance in protecting rights of people in Northern Caucasus, and that's why I think you have interactions here with such organizations, just pursuing your important job, which is very necessary for people in Russia, for people in Northern Caucasus and that part of Russia. And of course, there should be civil society control over the activity of authority, especially on such an important aspects like terrorism. And they should not be killing without court decision, simply because of suspicion that people could potentially be terrorists. That's why just all their families could be killed on an accidental manner or something like that, what we sometimes hear. It is very strange. It's very strange that in Russia we continue to face with this issue. Not necessarily in Chechnya, that's already I explained, a different situation, but in Ingushetia and Dagestan, that is the source of disturbance and a growing disturbance in Northern Caucasus, and that situation goes in a very dangerous direction. That's why I'm saying the potential dissolution of Russia could potentially start, if this regime continues to pursue this policy. This dissolution could start with Northern Caucasus, where the situation already out of authorities' control. That's what we say. We need elections, free elections immediately, so to start settling Northern Caucasians' problems by using democratic methods. Round table discussions, everyday discussions, and with all groups, with all social groups there, could bring the consensus, could bring peace there.
Well.